In this video, I'm going to show you how to annotate object with Annotator. So we still have the same image and we want to annotate nuclei. So nuclei are in the third channel, so let's just select channel 3 only in black and white. It's easier to see the contrast. And as you can see here, you have the object annotation panel. So we're going to use that. So first of all, so you can expand and you can zoom in and zoom out. So you can use plus or minus. You can also use your mouse and you scroll with control. And then when you zoom in, you can also navigate with the arrows, so up, right, down, and left. You can also pan in the image if you hit the space bar and then with the mouse. So let's say I want to annotate this nuclei. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And as you can see here, you have the add object, so I can directly start to annotate objects. So if you have a drawing tablet, it's really convenient because the way it works is that you use the freehand rise to define your nuclei. So if you, when you annotate, if you don't close your object, it's going to close automatically. So it actually links the first point and last point to define your object. As one pixel cannot belong to two different objects, if you define a nuclei that overlap with another one, then the new nucleus is going to be automatically what you define without the overlapping area. So it's pretty nice because then you can go pretty fast to define your objects like this. So as you can see, it's going to help you define your training dataset if you use deep learning, for example, where you need to annotate quite some data. So you have several operations you can do. You can, of course, remove objects. So you just hit remove object and then you click on the objects you want to remove. You can merge objects, so the objects have to be next to each other. And if you want to merge those two objects, so you select one of the other. When it's selected, you see that the outline is thicker, and then you select the other ones. And you see you have merged the two objects. You can merge like this. Then you can also split objects. And so you need to define a line that goes from out, split two objects, and out again. And you see, you define, so you split those two nuclei. You can also swap class. So to swap class, you need to define two different classes. So if we go back, you see here you have the intestinal epithelium. So it comes from the mouse. And outside the intestinal epithelium, you have mesenchymal cells. So maybe you want to have two different classes, one for the epithelial cells and one for the mesenchymal cells. Let's say you want to train a classifier to not only segment the nuclei, but identify the types of nuclei. So if you want to do so, you can add a new class. I see now you have class 1, which is the ones we first defined, and you have class 2. So let's select DAPI again. And I'm going to define new nuclei that are mesenchymal cells. So let's zoom in again, and now I can define new ones. So you see you have a different color, which allows you to actually identify so your two classes. And let's say you define a nucleus here, and actually it's not a mesenchymal nucleus cell, but an epithelial cell. So you need to swap this nucleus in the other class. So you first need to select the class you want to define, so which is class 1. Then you select swap class, and if you hit this nucleus, you see now it changed. It became class 1. Okay, So you see you have colors. Of course, you can define your colors like this. You just hit color and you can define different colors. So here it's red. Let's say you want to, and just so you know what it looks like, pretty straightforward, you can remove an entire class. You can also load and save. So let's save this segmentation. So you see it's automatically defined as object segmentation. I'm going to define it here as object segmentation to go fast. So if I zoom out and I go back here, so if I open the image, I'm sorry, if I open the image, you see you have two, so here it's two different slices that correspond to the different classes, and each nucleus has a different ID. So you see the background is 0, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you go to the other slice, same thing, different ID. So you can remove an entire class. So let's say I want to remove the first class, and you can load. So if you load the object segmentation, you see you get back your two classes. So of course now the colors are swapped, but you can change that again, whatever you want.